Welcome audience. Once again, thanks for joining Cretum Advisory webinar series on the emerging theme Impetus for Investment in India. Our theme is in line with the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, vision to create Atmanirbhar Bharat. I'm your host for today, Kapil Mahani, CEO and co-founder of Cretum Advisory, which is a multidisciplinary firm. In this webinar series, we are capturing. Thanks for joining Cretum Advisory webinar series on the emerging theme Impetus for Investment. In the webinar series, we are capturing the views of industry leaders, international partners, ambassadors, bureaucrats, and policy experts on the emerging theme investment in India coupled with Make in India, and also talking about the cross-border deals happening globally. So Cretum Advisory motto is supporting cross-border investment globally. With this motto, Cretum Advisory has just opened its international arm in France with the French network. In the last webinar series, we have with us Mr. Zayed, who was the international legend partner of Pro UAE, a key economic center of Pro Global. Before the same, we have done exclusive interview with the Invest India team and also with Mr. Vijay Goyal from London. So today we have with us Mr. Tarun Ghulati, who is the president and CEO of Squid Watermelon, which is a company incorporated in UK. Thank you, Mr. Tarun, for coming to the webinar and sharing your valuable time with Cretum Advisory on this theme.
My pleasure.
So just giving a brief introduction of Mr. Tarun, who is a very senior person from the financial industry. He is a seasonal finance service leader. He has led as president and chief executive officers of the financial services global businesses across Asia Pacific, Europe, Middle East, and Africa. He has lived and worked in 6 countries, primarily with Citibank, HSBC, ING, and UTI International Limited. He was former board member of the Thai Committee and also former deputy chairman of the London Chamber of Commerce and also business advisor to Voxen School of Business India. Recently, Tarun has launched 21st Century Icon Awards 2019, which was very successful. So thank you, Tarun, again for coming on the webinar, and it would be great if you can provide a glimpse about your journey and also what exactly you are leading the position, and also a little bit about the successful 21st Century Awards.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. It's indeed a pleasure for all your viewers. And well, I've been very fortunate to work across the globe, leading some very large businesses. I started off in India and worked with Citibank and HSBC, running several country level and regional businesses for them. I would say it in a different way. I've been following the money trail. So when India was not even liberalized, I was working in a bank then. So I saw some action back in India. And then I followed the trail for the Asian Tigers and went off to Hong Kong with HSBC. I was fortunate to be selected globally by HSBC to the very select cadre of international managers, of which there are less than 300 of the 300,000 odd employees globally. So that took me off to Hong Kong, where I was the credit manager international, leading the credit for the bank in 15 odd countries. And the Asian Tigers were roaring then, Singapore, Hong Kong, South Korea, and Taiwan. And I was involved in giving hundreds of millions of dollars to those businesses. And then I was operations manager international, so led the operations for about over 16 odd countries, again in Asia Pacific. So then we had the Asian financial crisis, and that dampened some spirits. But then, given that I'm a change maker and make things happen, they shot me off to Thailand, which was the epicenter of the crisis then. And so I went off to Thailand as the senior vice president for HSBC and led the businesses there successfully. And then Qatar, which, as you know, has one of the largest oil reserves in the world, the new emir had taken over and was doing things which were making a difference to the oil world at least, and OPEC. So there I went off to Qatar as the deputy CEO and heading the business there and leading the financial services business primarily on the personal side. And again, followed the money trail back to the UK, where I led the Indian businesses and then a $40 billion premier bank, and also led the international personal banking business for HSBC. And then I went off as a vice chairman of a bank and an entity where I led all the financial services businesses in Africa, sat on some 35 boards. It's been a fantastic journey. I consider myself fortunate. Squared Watermelon is a brainchild which I co-founded with Preeti Rana. And we felt that there is a huge transfer of wealth taking place in the world. For those who don't know the numbers, it's mind-boggling. It's $68 trillion that will transfer from the baby boomers to the next gen over the next couple of decades. And we were approached by several entities, family offices, VCs, and other money makers, wealth managers, to say, hang on, can you guide us through this piece, given your connections are global? So Squared Watermelon is primarily engaged with the next generation, with the creators of wealth, which were the baby boomers. And then now we're hand-holding the next gen, Gen Y, Gen X, Gen Z, to take charge of this money. And the next gen, as you know, is thinking differently. They're more flexible, they think differently, and they don't want to do what their forebears did. So we are helping this journey, the transfer of wealth. So I'm again in the forefront. The 21st Century Icon Awards, if I was to be a bit brash, there's nothing like this globally. We have had participants from 35 countries coming across. These participants come to the UK from all over the world. These are change makers, they are billionaires that participate. So we've had the participation from, let's say, Sanjeev Gupta, who just bought 6 ArcelorMittal plants. We've had participation from billionaires in India, but equally Forbes 30 under 30, the Forbes 40 under 40. We have participation, we have partnerships with the London Stock Exchange Group, with other entrepreneur organizations, and all organizations over the world want to be part of this journey where the next gen is the future. So these awards are held every year, and they have 15 odd categories, and some of the top people in different categories send in their nominations. So last year we had over 700 nominations, leading to about 15 awards. Top panel of judges, again, from the CEO of the Dinah Award, where the Prime Minister and Prince Harry and William are patrons, Baroness Verma, we have the Vice Chair of KPMG, the Global Lead Partner of KPMG, Tessie Ojo, who, as I said, was the Dinah Award. Then we have Denise Lewis, who's a former Olympian and obviously a great person in the sports world. And then Nick Ogden, who founded ClearBank and WorldPay and others. So a top host of judges decide on these winners, which is an onerous task. And it's a journey that is bringing us closer to where the creators of wealth and the inheritors of wealth go next. So that's what and we are creating global leaders, the young global leaders of the world. And we handhold them and take them to the next stage of their journey. So that's what we are doing at the moment.
That's great. That's a wonderful journey. And it's so, I must say that after so much of experience, you landed up in terms of the 21st century. So there is always an anxiety in me that you came from a financial background, you do, and how come this 21st century awards come to your mind? That's something which I really want to, and my audience also want to understand.
I think once you're engaged with money, you never give up. So one is still involved with money. As I said, we handhold them to the next stage. So they need money. So we help them with debt. We bring them together with VCs if they need venture capital funding. We bring them in touch with the angel investors. As I said, through the Stock Exchange Group, it sponsors an award, the Elite Rising Award, Rising Star Award. They give money to these indirectly to have these entities participate. So we actually show them the way, bring them through other stakeholders that will take them forward. So the whole idea is if you're an entrepreneur and you're in business and you're not making money, what is the purpose of doing this? We help them
Yes,
through that journey. So as I said, the involvement with money and engagement with money never ends.
that's great. That's great. So now we have today with us certain questions with regard to the cross-border and specifically focusing on the UK-India business. So our first question to you is, which are the sectors in India do you think that UK companies will be interested, and vice versa from the SME perspective?
I think firstly, if you look at it, the SMEs are the backbone of any economy, whether it's India or whether it's the UK or any other part of the world. You will note that the SMEs probably contribute between 90 to 99% of all any economy in the world, mostly, and particularly in India and the UK. The Indian economy is a little different where, if you will note, about 60% is driven by the rural sector. Now, with the SME sector, you got to see, given the backbone, they're also a very large employer. So they lead to a good part of the employment in the world. Now, the UK, if you note, is the single largest G20 investor into India. And again, if you look at research, you will find that there are roughly 842 companies operating in the UK, contributing to about 42 plus billion in the economy here and paying roughly about $500 million of taxes. So the numbers are mind-boggling, and the economy is driven. Now the SMEs in the UK are slightly different. While the aspirations for any SME is to grow, and the governments are obviously realizing the potential for ages, but how do you keep in touch with the times today? So the SMEs in the UK are more R&D and innovation orientated and technology driven, and then their counterparts in India. So they're also part of a global supply chain, and indeed for some very large entities here, but also part of the original equipment manufacturers in those sectors. And equally, so they obviously operate in high growth markets. The SMEs in India, again, if you note, are providing the backbone of the Indian economy, but they want to take advantage of some of they are involved in manufacturing and engineering and the service sector, but they want to take advantage of the UK and be part of this, the global supply chain that the UK will offer and open up larger markets for them. The priorities and the positioning of the UK and Indian SMEs is slightly different, but there are synergistic opportunities that exist. And those need to be taken advantage of, particularly in certain sectors like the aerospace, defense, automotive, low carbon technologies. If you look at construction, you can have modular construction that is taking place, healthcare, and some of the sectors that are currently attracting the SMEs.
Okay, so if we have to summarize this answer, so that the UK companies which are looking for investment in India or from India, so if you can just touch upon the top 5 wherein the Indian companies can look for investment in UK and UK companies are looking something for in India. If you can summarize in terms of this answer, that would be great.
So in India, as I said, the government has relaxed the automatic route for FDI.
Yes.
And so very few sectors are now where you need exist where the government route is still there. In other words, mostly folks can come in and invest money, take advantage of a relatively, if you will, low cost base. Production costs are lower. There is skilled talent available. I would hasten to add, it's the largest democracy. Your investment is safe. Decision-making and policy-making is strong. And there's a demand. Where else are you going to find a market that you have 1.3 billion people,
yes,
consumer-driven, unlike
yes,
a neighbor that pretends to be friendly, but is not consumer-driven. So at the end of the day, India offers an opportunity which is unparalleled to sort of, and there is indeed, as we speak, a drive from businesses to move from China to India. About
Yes.
1,000 odd companies are looking at India.
Yes.
So it'll be
Yes.
remiss of the UK to ignore this opportunity. Now, some of the key sectors, healthcare, for instance, there are
Yes.
synergistic opportunities. Both the countries are talking of vaccine development. India has been at the forefront, if I might say, on reducing the cost of vaccines for
Yes.
different illnesses and ailments in the world. And there are opportunities that are being looked at as we speak. So on
Yes.
healthcare, if you will look at aerospace and defense,
Yes.
India, I think, if I'm not mistaken, has now just relaxed the FDI investment to about 74% in defense.
Yes. So I think
The idea is to be
that's
self-sufficient. The idea is to be self-sufficient.
Yes. Yes.
To mention Atmanirbhar Bharat. So the idea is to be self-sufficient in defense. India is one of the largest spenders and importers, if you will, on defense. So there's a large opportunity there. Aerospace is one of the largest users of civil aviation,
Yes.
and indeed a growing market. So there's an opportunity there. And if I'm again not mistaken, the government has allowed NRI, 100% NRI investment, in fact, to come in there. So again, there's an opportunity there. I mentioned construction. Logistics is another space. So now with COVID-19, economies are going to look inward. There is a need not to be protectionist. So if you're going to look inward, and India being one of the largest producers of agricultural produce, you've got to have logistics. So I think there's an opportunity in logistics, warehousing, storage, and indeed on digitalization of the world. So earlier you would say digitalization is, I can do, but now it's a must do. So that's going to make the change. So I think and technology transfer, I think India also is offering IP protection. So the fear of somebody running away with your sort of secrets is not the case with the UK. So I think there's all going well. On the flip side, coming to the UK, I think, as I mentioned earlier, there is a lot of, the UK entities are R&D driven, I think more technology driven, and there is scope for the SMEs from India to come here. Again, there's scope again on healthcare, as I said. So there are synergistic opportunities. There is manufacturing opportunity here. The UK, if I might add, productivity has fallen in manufacturing in comparison to its peers, even in Europe. And that can be taken advantage of because the Indian SME, which is coming from a low cost base, can now come and join the UK setup, whether it's licensing or overall opening up or in partnership. There can be knowledge sharing, if you will. Joint venture opportunities exist. So I think there's a whole lot of plethora of opportunities in the chemical space, in the IT space, again, as I said, in the manufacturing arena, where there's an opportunity that should be taken advantage of.
That's so with the same. My next question to you is that given India is positioned as world third largest startup economy across the globe, so what are the expectations from startups in India? Do they look when they need to globalize themselves in terms of UK once they establish, and also parallelly, what are the UK business houses, the fund houses which are looking for investment in the startup space? So now, over to you.
I think both India and the UK are now widely recognized as the startup hubs, India and Asia particularly, and the UK. And with Startup India, that was started, I think, by Prime Minister Modi in 2016, a lot has been done. There's a lot of hand-holding, there are a lot of incubators, there are a lot of accelerators, and indeed, there's even a league table that exists between various states. So the startup ecosystem is pretty strong in India as we speak. And that basically means the incubators and accelerators in India can create and handhold more than 5,000 startups in India. I think with the amount of money that has flown in, India has about 24 odd unicorns. The UK has about 77. But having said that, there is so much happening in the tech world. The UK is indeed, where it comes to Asian tech, inward investment from VCs, is the number one recipient of that sort of money. But where the startups are concerned in India, I think they need to, the amount of money that was expected to be deployed and handheld, they need money. What does a startup need? It needs an environment where they can start quickly, hit the ground running. If possible, a plug and play sort of a model would work. The states and the center need to be supportive. So whilst the mindset and the policies are there, I think the 10,000 odd crore that was expected to be spent hasn't been deployed yet. I think they need to scurry up and pass that money on. But the ecosystem is so strong in India. The desire to grow is so strong. And the startups have been recipients of money, particularly in the tech world. A large number of money has flown in from China. Notwithstanding what we are hearing in the press, I don't expect that to stop. There can be only a minor blip there because I think there's a win-win situation that exists. So Startup India is a great initiative, I think. And
yes.
Prime Minister Modi is giving a lot of focus on startups there. Again, in the UK, as I said, there have been large recipients. There are at least, I think, notwithstanding Brexit or COVID-19, money is flowing in. I think there are at least 96 companies, will be surprised, that are poised to become unicorns, recognized, a list. So the list is growing, and there is enough of knowledge transfer that's been done. Don't forget, India and the UK have a history. And whilst nobody can say, look, we have a right over the business that is done in these two countries, I think it's not past a shelf life. There is a desire. I think moment Prime Minister Johnson came, he, I think, had a call with Prime Minister Modi. So that was one of the first calls he made. That suggests the closeness of the two countries, the desire to do business, and I think that will continue as we speak.
Very well said about. So now everyone knows about the COVID. So we have seen COVID has impacted various economies. So has COVID-19 made India a more favorable investment destination for the companies looking for shifting of supply chains specifically from China, since it's a low cost manufacturing as an OEM? We have seen in the COVID time period, there are companies which have used India as one of the manufacturing hub for shifting of their supply chain by having contract manufacturers in India. So what is your perspective on to this?
I think firstly, COVID has indeed made India, put India into a unique position. Despite the fact that it has 1.3 billion of a population, and yes, one might argue that the rate of infection is increasing and more cases are being tested positive, each death is unfortunate. It's a loss to the family, friends, and everybody, but at the same time, they managed to control. They have localized lockdowns where possible, they're controlling matters there, and they're trying other drugs that help. So at the end of the day, the number of deaths in comparison to the population is still relatively low.
Yes.
Now, coming to China, indeed, I think MasterCard announced, I think they're going to spend about $1 billion towards $1 billion to digitalize the SMEs. There are other entities that have promised money there. Apple is shifting some money.
Yes.
I think Hasbro, the toy company, is shifting monies there. And there are other entities that are looking to invest money there. The fact of the matter is that India is less affected by global supply chains, unlike other economies, including the UK. It is consumer driven. There's a huge internal demand which drives it. There are local supply chains. So it is not as affected as some of the other countries. In fact, the IMF, whilst every country is affected and the GDP is dropped, and the UK is in a state of recession, but India, I think the IMF is still predicting about a 1.9% growth. And next year, it is between the 6 and 7%. Now that is unique. In that sort of an enviable position, which entity is now going to look at India? They've got to look at India, it's a huge market. You go there, you set up manufacturing entity there or set up your business there, go in with the right partners. The government is there with open arms. The policies are just about right. They're welcoming foreign direct investment. India is bound to be a recipient of FDI. I suspect they had about, as I mentioned earlier, about 49 odd billion of FDI last year in 2019. Next year, we should touch about 75 billion, and in about 2 years, 100 billion.
Yes.
FDI. Now that speaks volumes for what India has to offer as we speak today.
So you very well said, and in fact, just to add up what you said is, India, under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister, they are aggressively pitching in terms of the various incentives. They are making the tailor-made incentives for various companies who are looking. And now one of the non-profitable organization, which is Invest India program, run by the Prime Minister of India, they are the one of the non-profitable and government organization which are driving all the states. They have made a peer pressure among the states to come up and to give certain incentives for the companies. And each day there are policy changes which are happening so that the companies can look as an investment destination for India. And when I talk about India in terms of states and UTs, when it comes to pharmaceutical sector, then Assam and Andhra Pradesh is one. If you talk about the electronic sector, Uttar Pradesh is one. The Samsung has built the entire their plant in UP, Uttar Pradesh. So the industries are widely adopting this, and specifically with this COVID time, you see a big investment into the Reliance industry, which has recently been announced, and that's one of the biggest. So we can very well see the synergies and even the comparisons of the companies which are looking for investment in India in this COVID times. So now the one question which we have in line is that from India, what are the sectors that deeply impacted due to COVID in UK, and thus the UK government has given the revival benefit as more Indian businesses are keen to invest in various sectors in UK?
Yeah, so firstly, I think you touched upon Reliance. It'll be remiss of me not to mention Geo Platform Limited. I think 10 investors, including Facebook, TPG, and others, in about 8 weeks to conclude a deal of about 14.8 odd billion is tremendous. I think it only happened in June.
Yes. During the COVID.
So that validates what I was saying earlier, that notwithstanding COVID-19, I think India is going to be recipient of a lot of funds. And not to mention the Saudi Aramco deal that Reliance is also talking of with a huge enterprise value. So I think now COVID, as I mentioned earlier, there is no denying the fact it's going to impact all economies in the world. And the world is largely connected. Now, some countries are going to do better. There are opportunities. And as I said, India is certainly one of them. Now, the UK is, I think, the Prime Minister Johnson is, as I said, each life lost is lost. There will be, whilst there is a learning each day about the pandemic, but including the Secretary of State for Health, the Chancellor, are all aware that this is impacting lives. And when it says impacting lives, the economy is suffering. In other words, each individual has less in the bank, and how do you beef up the coffers? So the UK has offered many incentives. I think one of the largest amount of hand-holding anywhere in the world. Close to about 330 billion has already been allocated. Only day before, the Chancellor allocated another 30 billion. The mantra in the UK is, instead of going into an austerity sort of a position, is to build an infrastructure, thereby increase employment. There are currently 9.4 million individuals in the UK who are on furlough, being supported by the government. In other words, the government is paying about 80% of the salary of and they've extended this till about January 2021. Okay. Now, when you're on furlough, you need to come out of that, correct? This can't last forever. So the government is trying to create employment. Equally, the youth who are coming out of university or going into university are one of the largest sufferers. So again, from the age of 16 to 24, huge amount of incentives have been offered to entities to bring these apprentices in, bring people onto job placement, give them some real meaningful work to do, and they're going to again incentivize and pay for these individuals. So there again, there is an incentive there. Again, the SMEs in particular, but also the larger corporates are being supported by what you call the Coronavirus Intervention Scheme, CBILS. So there again, the SMEs, there is a huge take up on that. They can apply for those sort of loans and business interruption loans, where again, they're being supported. Again, not only on the SME side, as I said, even on larger corporates. Then you have, for the smaller entities, where you have shown a turnover, some sort of a self-certification, you can get bounce back loans. So you want to bounce back into these. So up to a maximum of up to 50,000 sterling, a very simple application form, and you get that sort of money. So a lot of entities are being helped. Again, as I said, a lot of money is being allocated on infrastructure. The idea is to build infrastructure across the UK.
Okay.
So it's not only the UK. Same goes, as I was mentioning earlier, for these unicorns on the startup world. It's not only London that's the recipient. There are other destinations from Oxford to Manchester. So there's a huge drive to make sure that while COVID-19 is a reality, let it not dampen spirits. These are unprecedented times. The government, this is a high wire act for every entity, including the government.
Definitely.
And so you got to open up the coffers, make sure you handhold people today so they come out on the other side looking stronger and indeed in a position to do well. So they're giving support to the hospitality sector, which is affected. Tourism is affected, airlines are affected. They're trying to give support to all sectors. Travel bridges have been created so you can come in and out of countries without quarantines. A sort of a traffic light system is there. Obviously, if it's amber and red, you got to be a little more careful unless you're green. So I think there's a lot going for a entity from India looking to come to the UK because there is a lot of support. And indeed, there's a desire. And as I said, those companies will be welcome, and they're contributing in a massive way towards the UK economy, and it's recognized.
Okay, so that's good. And in fact, I was just reading that in some news that the UK government has even given a kind of a waiver, or I'd say a benefit to the restaurants as well, wherein they have given 50% grant on the discount on the customer, whatever billing they are doing, and that will be funded by the government. It's something which I've just read in some newspaper. I don't know how much it is correct, but
it's actually correct. I know you keep your ear to the ground. You're very correct. So what has happened is you will know, whilst in different countries you have social distancing norms, right? And they maintain between 1.5 to 2 meters of distance. Now, if you maintain 2 meters, as was the norm earlier when we went into lockdown in the UK, you would find that if you were a restaurant owner, you would only be able to cater to about 30% of your clients coming in, because you got to keep things safe for the clients and for yourselves and ensure that the disease does not spread. So what they've now done is 1 meter plus. So subject to other precautions being taken, you make a booking into the restaurant, so that who goes in, there's a record there. So if there's a need to track and trace, which is very, very strong in the UK now and growing every day, you're able to know who came, who did you come into contact with. Now, to answer your question about whilst they've helped the hospitality sector in terms of rent rate reliefs, and as I said, the furloughing of staff and paying for that. But at the same time, you got to have people coming out. So there's a inertia factor, there's a fear factor. All of us wonder whether we should go and meet. So to sort of excite people to come out and get dressed again, the idea is between now and the month of August, if you walked into a restaurant, you would firstly, they've reduced the sales tax, the VAT.
I think that 20% to 5% has been done.
That makes a massive difference, isn't it?
Yes, 15% reduction.
15%. Simultaneously, they have offered a discount. So what will happen is there's a 50% discount.
Yes.
So and up to about 10 odd pounds per individual.
Yes,
so if you walked in with 5 people and you sent a certain sum of money, not only are you going to save on the VAT, you're also going to spend less, come out smiling, and indeed help that particular environment firstly. In other words, a positive environment will be created and people go out. But that particular restaurant or outlet where you go to, you will benefit that to come out of the market as we speak.
A good move to save the hospitality industry in this tough time, because the people are actually not looking to buying anything, or specifically the food stuff. So this makes something lucrative, someone to do to buy something or to eat something for the hospitality sector. A good initiative by the government.
Excellent initiative. I hope they're doing the same in India. I'm not so sure, but if they are, again, excellent.
So lastly, the last question which we have for you is, what are the kind of queries which are coming from your clients or other UK companies with regard to investment in India, or anything from India as well, if you are looking out certain queries? If you can touch upon that.
Yeah, so if you look at anybody that, let's say you and I are making a simple investment anywhere, we do our due diligence, we try and find alternative options and where do we invest, and then there's a balance of risk and reward. We then look at that balance and then spend our monies. The same goes for any entity. So as I said, the UK is increasingly looking to do business overseas, particularly with Brexit. As I said, Prime Minister Johnson had a conversation with Prime Minister Shri Modi ji, and they spoke just when he got this majority government and was elected. And there are bilateral talks already taking place. I think there are 3 of these talks already ongoing. Now, what that means is, and don't forget, at that point in time, COVID-19 hadn't struck. So these talks point into a direction that there is a matching of minds to do business. Now, as we speak, India has been very supportive, again, on the healthcare side with the UK, and that's widely recognized. So I think there is a need to look at new opportunities. I think healthcare is one. Whilst, as I mentioned earlier, there is already some coordination taking place in terms of the vaccine development, but India is one of the 12 or 13 countries that is looking at that. But there is need for more cooperation, particularly when this will be manufactured in bulk for the availability of all. India will have a large play there. So I think the Secretary of State, Mr. Hancock, is talking with his counterpart on the other side in India. Again, on the aerospace and defense, as I said, with the new skirmishes around the Indian border, there is a need to make sure that Atmanirbhar Bharat mantra is not just in words, but we actually do that. So there is enough scope on the defense side where there can be a lot of work which the SMEs from here can go and sort of, aerospace was mentioned by me earlier. I think on the IT side and technology side, again, there is a lot of work that can be done there. The construction, I mentioned modular construction, some other aspects which can be looked at. There's a huge amount of work that can be done there, particularly in logistics, storage and logistics. So there is stuff that can be done. And these are, I think these are moving targets as we speak. But the fact is, whatever you do, a matching of minds exists. There is a lot of toing and froing of business happening. And we need to build on those building blocks and make sure that the targets that India set for itself, it's the 5th largest economy, it just got pipped recently, but I think it is poised to become the 3rd largest. The demographic dividend cannot be ignored. The large amount of young workforce that will be available, I think, over the next so many decades cannot be ignored. The low cost base cannot be ignored. And indeed, this ability of skilled force available. I said it is a democracy. The decision making takes place and there is demand. So if you combine these factors, it would be very important for the UK to look at it with a single-minded focus and say, we are packing our bags and setting off to set up businesses in India.
Definitely. And in fact, with your presence and with your company as your leadership, there's always a kind of a cross-border. Anyone can approach you for who are looking for investment from the UK side to any other nation, not only restricted towards only India, but also to other nations.
Yes, as I said, we have connections in about 35 odd countries internationally, and through Cretum Advisory and entities like Square Watermelon Limited, we'll make all the difference, because whilst these Skills India, Make India, Made for the World, all those Startup India, all these programs do exist, but it's entities like yours and ours that make all the difference. We build the bridges, we facilitate the businesses, and we sort of carry the flags of our countries forward and build a better, brighter future for the 2 countries and indeed internationally across the world.
So very well, last lines which you said. So thank you, Mr. Tarun, and you spoke well. You spoke about the entire your journey. That was actually very inspiring and learning for all of us, and the kind of passion you are still with in terms of spending your time in terms of knowledge, as well as in terms of networking with us, and also entrepreneur mindset people interacting with all these people. So it's very much enterprising. So thank you once again for your time, and looking forward to more seminars and knowledge sharing things with you on the cross-border deals.
It'll be a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me, and look forward to seeing you again soon when times are better and we can travel.
Yes. Thanks.